Welcome back everyone to the next of our indie gaming adventures as we take on the Great War Western Front, a game that if you're in the strategy community you have no doubt heard a ton about, and for darn good reason. There are not many games out there that are willing to take on the First World War, and there are even fewer still that actually do it any justice. Featuring a turn-based campaign map to move your soldiers, tanks, air force, and the also important artillery, not to mention building up your supply lines and shoring up your regions, all before shifting over to a real-time strategy battle of attrition across no man's land on the absolutely game-changing, persistent maps. And the cherry on this proverbial cake, you'll be doing all of this within the historic and incredibly well put together First World War setting, featuring historical units and regions, all along with a mixture of fully voice-acted World War I archive footage. There's plenty there for the history fans, there's plenty there for the strategy fans, but let's go ahead and see just how this all comes together. Now I don't want to make this too long as there is a ton to cover, but just before we get onto the game itself, I will note that there is multiplayer coming as well as options for skirmish matches. Unfortunately, I have not been afforded a little sneaky peek at these, but we have been able to check out their historical battles, the Battle of Passchendaele, and a battle that honestly did take me a few tries to complete because that time limit is a menace. But as all those returning know full well, and for anyone new who's fancy joining us along, I am well and truly a single player gamer. More importantly, I am all about grand campaigns. And the Great War Western Front does not let us down, affording us two separate campaigns, the Allied Nations and Central Powers, as well as a full tutorial with the option to continue on and push forward after you're done. And I'd just like to take a moment to appreciate the fact that they allow you to skip all the way through to continuing the war, as although you will definitely need to play through the tutorial in order to understand how all the systems come together, if you've already completed it, it takes quite a while. Honestly, there is so much to talk about in this game and so many great things to highlight, and I'm going to try and sum the whole thing up in the next few minutes. Game on! And welcome into the Western Front in our battle against the Bosch. God, I love old school insults. I mean, honestly, if nothing else, this is going to be one of the few games on Earth where you can openly shout bash the Bosch and it actually means something. But we're getting ahead of ourselves. First off, things to note, we have a massive border on the Western Front, and this isn't even the entire map. And for those familiar with hex-based strategy games, you're going to feel pretty at home here, with the one exception for the fact that you can pretty much move any unit anywhere within your territory, all within a turn. And if we go ahead and do that, grabbing our infantry in Paris, we can manually click to change the amount of soldiers we move, and grab 2 infantry to Soissons. And we're also going to send the last 2, maybe not towards the English front, we'll cover that in a tick. Let's move them all the way down to Epinal. Do that. There we go. So you're not going to be restricted on how far you move, which is incredibly useful. But you will note that these units have become locked off. So you are going to need to plan at least 1 turn ahead, moving your units forward, getting in position, getting set up before you can use them. And oh, are we going to use them? This place here, this will be ours. But before we can do that, we should note, in the north, we have the mighty British Army. And I've got to say, I really appreciate the fact that you actually get a really cool mix of different parts of the British Empire. I mean, for Pete's sake, we've got Indian infantry and Gurkhas. And since each nation within the Allied forces will have their own bonuses, I am really just hoping these guys are the absolute bee's knees, because I want to build an entire army out of them. We've also already covered our French. Finally, we have our American reinforcements. Because we have a mixture of French and American soldiers, we're given a negative morale setting for disunity of command. It's not a huge negative, it's just nice to see the fact that in the actual World War, you would hear about the French trench, the Irish trench, the Scottish trench, and that's just between countries, let alone languages. The fact that you'll have different soldiers speaking different languages, creating an inability to send orders, as well as just sending Scots and English, and Scots and Irish, and Scots, it's going to cause some issues. Our aim for this video is going to be taking Raphel, something that is a lot harder than it sounds. My only minor gripe with this game is the fact that claiming territory is incredibly difficult, but even then I don't know if I can complain about that because it's World War I. It was incredibly difficult. That was kind of the whole point of the war. Either way, in order to do that, we're going to need some proper units. We're going to need some artillery because you just need artillery. We're going to need some tanks, and I actually feel like we do need a little bit more infantry. We only have 4 companies, so you can see a breakdown of each company with the American infantry providing us 2 raiders and 20 soldiers, whereas the French only providing us 1 raider and 20 soldiers, but in return we get flamers, who I'm kind of ambivalent towards. They cost a lot, and outside of one very specific situation where I managed to get some flamers into the enemy HQ, they've not been that effective. All of the units have their own purpose. Infantry is the absolute backbone of your armies, with basic rifles being your bread and butter. Your raiders are melee specialists, able to use grenades and cause a lot of damage, though more importantly, having a far better chance at surviving and winning battles when it comes to melee trench warfare. Something we're going to be doing a lot of. And your flamers, well, as I said, if you can get them in, they can cause a lot of damage, but just like the raiders, they have a very short range, and well, they really like lead. With the final units of note being your artillery. Precision artillery is going to hammer your opponent, and light field artillery is what you'll be using to suppress the enemy, which is arguably the most important thing in the game. But with only 80 infantry, that definitely needs a bit of a boost. So we're going to guarantee ourselves a full 100. And yes, you heard me, a full 100 companies. There is something about the scale of this game that is just the next level. But on top of that, we also want to get some air support in, and I'm going to move this infantry around just to bolster the areas around Rathel, making sure we can get these 2 hammering in nice and quick, but also preventing the enemy from making any real pushes against us. The AI doesn't slouch. They go for it. They get absolutely hammered, but they do go for it. Bless their little consoles. We want to make sure we have at least 2 units of infantry in every area, but that's purely because so far I've not needed more than 2 to take care of pretty much any enemy I've come across. And as far as air support goes, to be honest with you, 1 wing has kind of hammered most of what they can throw at me. What can I say? If you've watched any of my campaigns from Total War, you'll know that defending is pretty much all I have. And when our movement complete, reinforcements in place, all quiet descends upon the Western Front. And to that silence, let's gain some army intelligence. This will grant us a much greater detailed idea of what the enemy has, including, rather importantly, their combat supplies. You can see here they've got tank battalions, infantry, conscripts, and a German air wing. That is gonna be tricky. How about these guys? Well, they got 4 infantry. Oh, I'm hammering you. Can I move some of these tanks? I'm gonna move some of these tanks. They're done. You are done. Congratulations. Oh no, we only have 1 artillery set. I can't do it with 1 artillery set. Right, well I quickly moved over some artillery because we're going to need it. But on top of our intel, we can also perform counter intel, prevent the enemy from finding out where we moved our troops. We're going to do that for both of these regions, Château-Thierry and Châtillon-Seman. And yep, I can't pronounce any of this. Enjoy! And since we have a negative thanks to that disunity of command, let's go ahead and build some canteens. And take it from the bear, the canteen's only as good as the wine you stock in it. I'm in France, darn it, this should be the good stuff. This will give us a bit of a morale bonus, actually bringing us up to positive, which is awesome. But that's going to go down very quickly as they start fighting more and more. They're just not going to be happy. I can't blame them either. So this is how you'll be upgrading your region, going through different options such as airfields, hospitals, engineering bays, all of which will be either increasing the supply granted for your units while reducing the cost of replenishing them, through to assisting your morale, increasing the supplies available within that region, something that is incredibly important, and shoring up your defenses against the enemy's intel acquisition. I'm gonna be honest, I don't put a lot of money into that. But it's definitely worth putting money into your supply depot, as this will give you more supplies on the battlefield, mostly so you can bring in artillery fire, but also so you can bring more soldiers up front. Even if you have enough soldiers in your corps, if you do not have the supplies to arm them and send them forward, they are completely worthless to you. So if you're thinking about building a massive stack of soldiers in a region, it's useless if you do nothing to upgrade your chain of supply. And on the note of those supplies, so far we've done army intel to learn about the enemy. We can also use counterintelligence to prevent them from learning about us, as well as gaining regional intel, allowing us to see the structures and current supplies of the regions around us. Everything I've mentioned so far is going to cost you gold, a resource that is both going to be granted to you each turn and used up each turn to maintain those different structures and the replenishment of your troops. It's a good idea to keep an eye on that, because besides maintaining your war efforts, you're also going to want to be using it to buy new units, which apparently I cannot physically say, as well as exchanging it for additional national supplies, though is limited by what the local supply depot can hold. Something we can find out by clicking on Chateau Thali and checking out our regional supplies, as well as finally a button I've never pressed. I'm actually intrigued. I want to use this. You can move your units from here, but I just click. It's easier. I don't know, call me old-fashioned, I click on units. Attention. And last but not least is the regional national will value. Now these stars are very important, and you'll need to be reducing them in order to claim them. Hence why we are not going after Perron for giving a total of 60 national will, but instead going after Othel with its measly 20. In fact, it's measly 6. I'll take what I can get. Now since we've used this turn to move our units, I am just going to hit end turn and allow the enemy to attack us, because they will. Excellent. The enemy has seen our region with a grand total of 3 cores. They're going to attack us with 6 regional cores themselves. It appears from the map, with our absolute lack of intelligence, that they only have infantry. So this should be a pretty easy win. Though I will note, you do have the option to auto-resolve, but looking at that, there's just no point. And all of this is just fantastic, giving so many different options that you're able to really tailor each region. Yeah, it's gonna kind of suck for the fact that should you be able to push on from that region, you've essentially sunk a lot of money into something you're not really gonna be using again. But, and I'm not gonna deny here, you really do need to shift the way you think. This is World War I mentality. You're gonna be spending a long time in every region hammering your opponent, and thanks to those persistent maps, building up your trench network, something that I am so looking forward to doing, particularly on those longer campaigns, hitting the mid to late game and just having the impregnable fortress of Nancy. And welcome to the fair trenches of Nancy. And no, before you ask, I did not set up this trench line, although I will admit it's actually not bad. In fact, just multiple overlapping small lines of trenches is incredibly powerful, and will more or less guarantee you victory in defense when backed up by just a handful of MG nests. Now so far all of these have been built using your basic firing trench, which is only going to cost you 2 points of resources, so it's really not that difficult to build and maintain. But for today we are going to throw in a rank 2 and a rank 3. Right, I'm gonna bring them over here so we can keep them nice and clear. So I have a rank 3 here, and a rank 2 here, and a rank 1. Right, so that'll be for us to check out. Upgrading your trenches is more to do with your ability to resist enemy artillery fire, as all 3 of them can only hold 2 companies and only 1 company can fire at any given time. On top of this, you can throw in a comm trench, allowing your units to move a little faster when you want to move between your trench setups. These are also a little bit smaller, so you can use them to link between different lines of trenches, something I kind of wouldn't recommend doing, as it's just so much more useful being able to hold the enemy up and fire over the top of everything rather than letting them run through your trench systems. That can get dangerous. In fact, I'm going to break this trench system up. But I'm also going to throw in a blockhouse trench. Now these are very useful. Just going to surround them with some basic trenches either side, as you cannot fire from a block trench, but you can stick 5 soldiers in them, allowing you to set up a good point of attack. A massed lump of infantry to all charge out, go over the top at once. I wish there were more whistles in this game. the last thing we need to do is place some MG nests. Now, I may have to demolish this. We'll have to check it out on the attack because I don't know where the enemy will come from. Will they come from the left? Will they come from the right? How many MG nests will we need? Actually, that might be enough. Now I say that, probably will be enough. I move you. Move you over here. Yeah. Maybe. That'll do. We have a tiny bit left over. Thankfully, French soldiers do not cost much. I'm just going to spread these infantry out so we have one every other position. Just so we have some infantry there right from the off. Now, a great part about this is the fact that you do not gain access to all of your supplies right at the start. Not only does this force you to be a little more strategic in how you're spending them, normally you would not want to build an assaulting-based trench when you're going on the defense, but we want to check stuff out. But you'd also want to be putting some points into some other support structures such as OBS balloons, which when sent up will allow you to see more of the enemy and set up some artillery. But instead, we're going to take the risk and we're going to use the remaining reinforcing supplies once the battle begins and just try and run all of our soldiers in and try and dig in before the Hun. With that said, let's get these guys moving. Go on, all set up in your frontline trenches. They're gonna have quite a run. Now something you'll notice is these are coming in a straight line. They're all in column formation, so they'll move pretty darn fast. However, they're quite susceptible to enemy fire. So we'll have to be a little bit worried, just in case the enemy rushes us. The alternative is to move in skirmish formation. You'll move a little bit slower, but you won't get absolutely shredded if the enemy opens up on you, particularly if you come up against something like an MG nest, which we want them to come up against. Alright, let's speed this up. We have 45 supplies left. Oh, bless the French for being so cheap. Hopefully that's enough. Did I not put anyone here? I'm going to put some infantry in here. Hello. Give yourself some infantry. Marvelous. This is pretty much all we need to do. We are now... Yep, we're now going to win. Let's speed this up. Let the enemy make their way towards us. And... happy days? See which way they go. And they are making their advance, attacking on the left flank. Let's get some more infantry in here. Might as well bring them in, get them ready to resist the enemy, and they're also sending in flyers, bombers. There they are. Now these buggers, if we could, we'll be doing air support to have air superiority, but we don't have any. They will take out our MG nests, and they're gonna take them out quickly. You're not gonna last long, mate. Basically, there's a great system of counters in this game. It's just unfortunate that we do not have access to any supporting units. We are fully reliant on these MGs. I'm actually annoyed by that. That's why you need to move those planes around. Make sure you have some air wings available. Oh, well. Did they survive? Ah, never be that easy. What did they take out? Oh well, wave 1 dealt with and still waiting to see what the Germans are doing. Coming after. Put eyes on you. They didn't even take anything out. Ah. Well, most of your battles are going to end like this. You always have the option to initiate a ceasefire when you're attacking. The option for defender is simply to surrender. We could, if we wish, deny the ceasefire and attempt to gain ground against the Germans, but this would force us onto the attack with 0 support and, to be honest, so few supplies. So let's just go ahead and accept that and do a little bit of damage to the enemy's will to fight by sapping those supplies. It's a bit of an unfortunate thing that since the trenches are already set up, you don't really have to pay for very much apart from infantry and some MG nests, resulting in, well, as you saw, we were able to hold off a unit twice our size without any real issues, managing to score 520 casualties against the enemy for 0. It's something that I think needs a little bit more balancing work, as although it is fun to defend and just absolutely hammer your opponents, I can see this getting a little tedious later on, particularly as that auto-resolve is so pressed against you. It's not the end of the world, and it's something I see a lot in grand strategy games, but it is something to keep a note of, and even if it isn't improved upon release, I can honestly see there being a fair few patches brought in to try and make that a little bit more of a challenge. We'll take the win, sap the enemy's will, and now we can check out the remainder of the campaign. New research grants from July 1918. The need to increase spending on research and developments into new technology and weaponry has been recognized. Reward, granting us 1 research point, alongside 1,200 gold. Not bad, not too shabby. Enemy spies have been confirmed in our territory. We aren't sure what they found. We must take steps to make sure we don't let this happen again. -5 national will. I mean, I would say since we found them, isn't that a good thing? Just mean that their spies are terrible? Oh well. Oh well, bringing up our research. And it is a doozy. As the campaign's been going on for a fair while, we do have a nice hefty chunk of things already unlocked. Though I will note that if you actually complete the tutorial, you will have access not only to gas shells using tear gas, but you'll actually have access to chlorine gas. Something that, despite the obvious war crime, was really fun to use. And since we want to go on the attack fairly early, I am going to go ahead and grab gas shells because they're just really bloody useful. But you can improve your logistic, you can improve your intelligence. Yeah, I agree. Don't put many points into that one. You can also improve your infantry, gaining access to new units, improving the abilities, and also gaining some defenses, some counters to that enemy siege equipment, as well as most other aspects we've covered so far. In fact, all of those trench improvements coming in from the trench network, and something I think for the long run, upgrading the defenses for your MG nests is kind of going to be mandatory. But we've claimed our war crime, that's all we need. And yet another event has occurred. The Tsar of Russia murdered. Most foul. Now these events come fairly often, with one such as this obviously being linked to the real life history, but you'll also get those events specific to the game, and it gives a nice mix and a good bit of flavor to the campaign as you go along. And I especially appreciate the pictures. But just having those actual historical records being brought to life in a game, genuine lover of history, what more can you ask for? Well, apparently we can ask for missions. The Whistling Death, water emplacements and explosive packages down on our men and vehicles. We must remove these menaces to make the field safe for our push into the enemy territory. You can feel the twiddling of the mustache as we speak. And upon that merry note, let's go ahead and check these soldiers. The soldiers of Metz attempted to attack Nancy. Unfortunately, they've reinforced quite a bit. 12 regional corps, hot darn. But since we won, we have no negatives to morale, whereas the enemy has been stuck with -15. If it was not so well defended, may well have been enticing, just to keep hitting back and reducing that morale further. But we are going to be 100% focused over here, and we are going to send every single soldier we have. And this is a very mixed in unit. We have in Chateau Taille with 3 American infantry. Oh, I should have mixed. You know what I should have done is moved them around and just had all the Americans in one. But we have canteens, so at least that's offsetting our negatives. Go on, let's get started on this. Well, we've seen a defense and now it's time for an attack. So up here is our mini-map. We can see some little points here. These are where your soldiers or reinforcements will be coming in from. More importantly, we also can see where we'll gain our reinforcements should we be able to claim any of these points. We have X, Y, and Z. Y being in the center, I actually think that's going to be very tricky to claim. X, the main base, and Z. I'm going to push for Z because that seems like it should be a very nice cut all the way through to the enemy's HQ. Now, something I was very surprised by is that if you claim the enemy HQ, you don't just like auto win the battle. You still have to keep pushing and trying to claim the other points. I've yet to claim every point in a battle map, and if anyone has, please tell me what happens. I'm going to be honest, I don't think I'm ever going to achieve that. Before our attack, we're definitely going to throw in this blockhouse. I just realized we didn't check out last time. So let's get a second and a third level trench set up and shift over to our support. Now this is very important on the attack. We are definitely going to be needing those balloons. This will give us good eyes on the enemy, and we're going to put them just in front. A little bit dangerous, but just in front of our trench line. In fact, I'm going to extend that trench line a bit just to cover this up a bit better. You know, I'm going to put one in front of it. Why not? It only costs 2 points anyway. Now I'm doing that because if the enemy manages to get close enough, doesn't matter what the infantry unit is, it'll be able to grenade this and take it down in seconds. But also, we're going to grab 2 just in case the enemy decides to bring in air support. Because I hate air support. And last but not least, set up that pounding artillery. I want to make sure we can at least get 2 points in and a little bit of their main base because they're going to have trench lines all the way along there. What can you hit? Everything. Light artillery. Struggling a little, but I don't want to advance you forward because I don't want to build more trenches. I'm going to get another cannon. To hell with it, I'm going to get another one. I love artillery. There's just something amazing about it. Right, to set up our defense, we will need some units all the way along the front border, so I'm going to chuck 1 soldier into every forward trench. Oh my days, I put so many French in that we actually ran out of French infantry. So we have a random American. Excellent. But on that note, I did build a couple of extra trenches and we still actually have space despite filling out this marvel of 5. So what I'm going to do is chuck in one of those French raiders, one of the American raiders, a spare bit of an American trooper in the back here, who apparently has disappeared, so I'm going to move them back. A little bit of a bug in the game every now and then. Your units kind of, you get an overlapping of some of the UI elements, and your units will struggle to get in trenches. A couple of times it's happened where I've managed to get a unit inside the trench, but not be registered as inside the trench, which meant no one could attack them. But I could attack everything, which is all fun and games until the enemy does it to you. But down here in the bottom left, we still have supplies left to get whatever we want. I'm actually pretty happy in terms of what we have in our support structures. We don't really need any other form of defense. The enemy's probably not going to attack us. Even if they do, we have more than enough infantry to deal with it. However, we only have 1 space left for units. So I'm just going to get 1 tank coming in with an MG on it. You have the option of an MG or a cannon-based. They both have their uses. I find the MGs tend to be a little bit better, particularly backed up by some precision artillery, dropping in that gas. Get the enemy out of the trench, that MG will mow them down. And all is quiet once more upon the western front. But this time, we're going to give a bit of a bash to the Bosch. So we're going to start off by raising our air balloons. The enemy has their own air balloons, but we're going to go balloon busting. Let's send in. On top of that, I might actually also send in a bombing run. Just going to try and take out that MG nest. Give it a little bit of a helping hand as we push through. MG nests are, I would say, the biggest worry in this game. Mortars do a good job at suppressing you, but it's just not the same. You're going to take so much more damage against an MG. So getting rid of those early on, very useful. Can we please shoot this down? Oh, there's just like a dude stood there, not freaking out whatsoever. Get shot at, mate. Good luck. They've actually ran away from this position. I'm going to charge it. That is an opportunity. Get in there, lads. Although the bomber, having the best bet, you failed me. I'm going to have to artillery that.
Tenez-vous prêts. Sur la ligne.
On the note of artillery, we're going to be getting in position soon. Let's start suppressing them. In fact, it costs a lot, but I am actually going to gas these guys. What that'll do is just force them out of the trench, give us a really good hand in pushing our way through. Because the quicker you can get into the trenches, the easier it is to maneuver around without getting absolutely destroyed. And I mean destroyed, by the enemy firing over the top of them. Alright, come on, everyone. Everyone needs to get in. Start moving around. Don't worry about the enemy. Figure it out. You'll probably almost kind of be okay. Get out of the way. Do not run into the enemy artillery. Oh, that's not good. Let's get all these inside. Excellent. Oh, you're destroyed. Yep, that MG nest is just taking them down. Good on you, soldiers. You may have fallen, but I just don't really care. I feel bad for it, but I just don't really care. It's something this game brings out on you is a realization that, like, it's only a few hundred soldiers. They'll be fine. Excellent. Running past this, we have taken out their balloon. Soldiers coming through. Go on, we should probably get... Actually, I'm going to leave you be. I'm going to get these guys moving over. Since we're now into the trench system, we don't have to worry about that MG nest. What might be worth doing, besides bringing this tank over, is I'm going to suppress all of these, because that is looking very dangerous. Hot darn, they're going for it. They're trying a counter-attack. They're going for the push. Oh, days. Cheeky little buggers. See if we can get some of our infantry coming up to reassist. We only have room for one. Seriously. Oh well, the tank will suppress them quite nicely while we take out the remainder and slowly claim Z. I do want some of these moving all the way around this trench system and coming in the back of the MG and just obliterating it. Who are you? Oh my days, there's 15 of you left. 15 of the bravest soldiers you've ever seen. And since we're kind of useless over there, let's get moving through this trench system and pulling up better positions. Get you moving out. Get back in.
Attention, take firing position.
Oh god. How are you actually firing on us already? Right, let's start hammering some of these since the enemy wants to run us. Yeah, we'll leave it at that. We've suppressed them. They are getting in. I'm going to move the grenades over to give them a hand. So as you can guess, taking on the enemy is rather costly for soldiers. Doesn't cost us too much in the way of supplies though. And I feel like Command cares more about that. So I'm calling this a win. Once more you hear the mustache being twiddled as we consider our position. Oh my days, they're still going for it. We'll start firing in on that trench. Just circling all the way around because that's the only way to take this on. Eventually we'll go and take out that field artillery, but it's just more important claiming this.
Reinforcements reported. Stand by for orders. Get in position.
Our men can reinforce from here now. Huzzah. Huzzah. How are we doing? We lost a tank. That isn't good.
Be ready, boys.
In fact, I'm going to try and knock all these guys out. I'm going to lose the infantry, but it's acceptable losses.
We've arrived and await orders. Attention.
You know what I am going to do? I'm going to get them trying to run straight over as well. It'll probably end as well as I think it will, but we'll give it a go. You guys, I'm going to flee you because you're not really much use to anyone. Just not enough of you left. If you run them out as well, you don't have to worry too much about the replenishment scores. You don't have to pay as much to get new units back later on. So that's helpful. Right, let's move over to the trench system to get better eyes over onto the enemy main base. We're coming for it. But in terms of attack, you can see how the time limit is going to be your biggest enemy. Oh, you go on there. I can't believe they actually did that. How is there no one here to defend? The enemy just let us go in. because they're beating us up elsewhere. That makes a lot more sense.
Attention! Take positions!
Absolute schnitzenstrue.
Ready yourselves! Take firing position!
We should start trying to push into this trench line. Let's get a little bit more over there. Get good eyes on the enemy. Good eyes on the enemy HQ. Get these so my units actually have a chance at firing back on them as well as they attempt to reclaim it. Oh, you got mullered. Oh, you almost feel bad for the little pixelated hearts. Most of your aims are really just going to be causing the enemy as much damage as possible rather than trying to push too much forward. Which in terms of being a gamer is a little disappointing, but historically accurate it is indeed. This is going to be how you spend the majority of your time on the Western Front. Pushing forward, making small advances as and when you can, dealing as much damage to the enemy as you can, and gradually making your way through their positions, depleting their supplies, and claiming their territory your own. And since we've now seen most of what your moment-to-moment experience is going to be, I think it's time just to enjoy some glorious trench warfare. And holy smokes, we've actually done it. We have claimed every position here. I'm just going to go double back because there's still red here. I just want to make sure that is absolutely obliterated. It should be. This should have been their artillery position. Took out all of it, right? Yeah, we took out all of it. Oh, yeah. Battle over. We have achieved some success, but lost the daylight. Another little bit of the bug. I have noticed the timer does randomly stop, but I'm pretty darn sure we've claimed X, Y, and Z. That is all blue. The first time ever I've actually done it. And all it cost was a few 100,000 lot of soldiers. And with 100% acceptable losses. Sorry, French. Taking ground, we have completed the hard task and moved the front line by a significant amount. Hell yes. Oh, I didn't think we claimed it that early. Minus 27 to the enemy. We did spend a lot of supplies on that though. Whoops. I love how like none of the French came with us. Whoops. All that is left of that force is 3 American corps, 0 tanks, and 1 plane. All that was costly. Minus 35. There, let's get you a canteen. You bloomin' well deserve it. And I'm also going to upgrade their supplies because they're going to need it in order to hold off the enemy. For our final part, let's go ahead. Let's buy some of these. I think we are indeed going to need some tanks. Let's get some mighty British tanks. They did not come in Paris. Where did you come in? You came in Calais. Come over here. Just going to rebuild this a little bit. Eventually, you will regain the infantry, although I think we might be slightly scuppered for having... Actually, you know what? I'm going to get rid of the French. I'm going to take only the Americans. So it should do a little bit of something. Yes, this will get rid of that disorganization of command. And even though we still have disunity because we have this French air wing. But if we can replace that and replace the British tank. Okay, they're still going to have issues. But at least we can hold Chateau Thierry. But there you have it, a first look and the first region gained in the Great War Western Front. And to sum it all up, yes, it's a little bit rough around the edges. There are still some balancing issues. Those defenses, I think, need to be made quite a bit harder against you, at least on the single player front. When it comes to multiplayer, trench warfare is going to be a completely different game. And something that I was glad to actually see in the single player, even if only once or twice, the AI attempting to pose feints and using its artillery properly to suppress our positions as their soldiers crossed no man's land and got into some of that melee trench goodness. I would definitely like to see a lot more of that, but from what I've seen so far, I have thoroughly enjoyed it and absolutely cannot wait to get a full-blown campaign going all the way across Europe. And I'm not going to deny building an entire army out of Indian infantry corps and just marching on into Belgium. And that's before even checking out some more of those historical battles. It was actually through playing the Battle of Passchendaele that I was able to learn how to properly use artillery and subsequently start making more ground and pushing back the forces on the campaign map. having previously been a little too reliant, to be honest, on those tanks, which although are pretty darn good and will definitely hold the enemy at bay if you can catch them out in the open, and going up against trenches, quite realistically, they really weren't as good as suppressing the enemy and just getting infantry in there. As when you're playing at war with multiple corps, you can stand to throw 10, 20, 30 soldiers forward and just keep going until the enemy runs out of bullets. In fact, even though I adore World War I settings, I kind of can't wait for a Warhammer 40k mod for this, as it would be perfect for the Imperial Guard. And with that final little thought thrown in, thank you very much for watching. This has been the Great War Western Front. I hope you've enjoyed, because I've definitely enjoyed bringing this to you. And until next time, as always, peace out.